Welcome to Integrity Inspire, your daily dose of inspiration and motivation, featuring the bright and talented members of the Integrity Marketing Group family. Now, here's your host, Integrity co-founder and CEO, Bryan W. Adams.
Hey, so we'll go ahead and get kind of started here, and wanted to first of all say thank you for joining us, man. I've been looking forward to this day. I know you don't love to get up and speak in public a lot. You got great guys to do that a lot for you, but man, it's gonna be a lot of fun today. I think everybody's just gonna be really, really blessed, man. So thank you for doing this. One of the things I think that people love is just hearing real stories from real people about how they overcame obstacles and how they thought big, and how they just dreamed for something bigger in life and accomplished it. And so, for those of you who don't know, Mike White is first of all, Integrity Marketing Group would not be anywhere today without Mike White. Whenever you do something like what we were trying to set out to do with Integrity, is you have to have somebody who leads. And Mike and I and Tom and Mike and us, we ran into each other in South Dakota of all places, and we were on a pheasant hunt out there and ran into each other in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. And Mike said, "Hey, what did you guys do? What were you guys doing with Steve Young and the rest of the team there? And how did I become part of it?" And it was one of those things that I think we underestimate the power of what we were already doing. And Mike was like, "Hey, I'm interested in looking at doing something like that." And so very quickly we started talking about how could we all partner up. And we wouldn't have a lot of the same philosophies. We wouldn't have a lot of the kind of the overall partnership that we have today at Integrity if it weren't for Mike and his team coming alongside of us. And really in those early days, we were all trying to figure it out. We're still all trying to figure it out, but we were really trying to figure it out together. And we would not be where we were without the leadership that Mike and AC and Tony and Hunter and all the great people there had really helped kind of bring this together. And so Mike White has really been somebody I've looked up to. When we started Integrity in 2005, we were kind of coming up with this idea of how do we go out, and if we all came together, we would all accomplish more. And we really set out and looked at a business that was in Georgia, and really said, I'd never even met Mike, but there was a group of us who were trying to come together and put this thing together, and we said if we could create just kind of like what Mike White and AIMC has done, then we could be really successful. Mike had created AIMC to be just the market leader in developing and distributing Medicare supplement products in the U.S., but he had done it with this network of what he called Diamond Partners. And the idea was that he would develop the products and then they would come together and be able to distribute them much more efficiently and much more effectively for carrier partners. And when carriers got into the senior market, Mike White and his team were just the first people that these carriers would look to come out there and be able to take on their products. And so we looked at this business and Mike White, and I remember the day I met you, Mike. You probably don't remember this, but I remember we were on a trip. We were actually in New Zealand, and when I met you, I was probably more excited about meeting you than meeting a celebrity, because in my mind you are a celebrity, but you also really can help form a lot of the different the things that even myself and Integrity kind of was part of. And then when you decided to join Integrity, that's when it all took off. I mean, for everybody who's on this call and who really sees all the success. I mean, those were some tough times. It's funny because people feel like you're an overnight success, but we would never have been where we are today without you, Mike, and your team. So on behalf of all of us, I just want to tell you thank you, my friend.
Buddy, I appreciate those kind words, but you would definitely be where you are, and I'm just humbled to be part of the team and just to play a small part in this incredible organization. You know, I do actually remember New Zealand very well, and just one of the great things to happen in my life was meeting you and getting connected with what's happening here today. First of all, let me say thanks for having me on Inspire, and Bryan, the podcast has really kind of been a great example of staying connected here at Integrity throughout this crazy time we're all in. So thanks to you and all the partners that have spoken in my life over the past 3 weeks, because it has certainly kept us focused and stayed together. So again, appreciate you.
Well, hey, you know what? Thank you for saying that. And listen, one of the most fun things I think is we've talked a lot about business strategy and philosophy and different things of that nature. However, one of the things I think everybody has enjoyed the most, I've enjoyed the most, maybe I should say that, is getting to know each other better. And so the world has slowed down. We have all become kind of, locked in our own little world and our houses. And so one of the things that this podcast has done is allowed us to get to know each other better. And it's just a gift. I've actually learned more about different people and I mean, just the ideas that people have and just from a personal standpoint, I've personally grown a lot. I think by just slowing down and getting to know each other. And so, Mike, when I think about Mike White, I think about somebody who thinks bigger than anybody I've ever thought of or ever gotten to know. I mean, you are not afraid of anything, and you have been able to come up with ideas and execute upon those ideas in a way that very few people have ever been able to do. You're also one of the most generous people I've ever met, and just how you include others, and you've got this campfire kind of mentality that I want as many people around the campfire that we can hang out and enjoy and kind of celebrate with, but also we can all accomplish more by working together. And you're just one of the most fun guys that I've ever met. I don't know if a lot of people kind of know your story though, and I know a lot of people don't really slow down enough to really say this is where I grew up and this is what I did. But if you would, I think it'd be just a lot of fun if people just got to understand kind of your background and where you began. So would you kind of share about kind of how you grew up and how you got into the insurance industry?
Be glad to, Bryan. As we kind of move forward with this, I want to say that the great thing about our business is a lot of times, like I did, bring a lot of our friends in to the business. I guess like we all do, and so I know that there's at least a couple on this call this morning that grew up with me through high school. And Mark waits. So if I start to embellish anything, Mark, just hit pound 6 and say, nope, that's not quite right. He's embellishing that. So let me start out by that. But I grew up in a small town north of Atlanta called Alpharetta, where everybody was pretty much middle class economically, except for a few families in the communities, including my family, that struggled financially. I was the youngest of 9 kids, being raised by a single mother. We lived in a 2-bedroom shack, and at times there were up to about 14 members living in the same house. We always had brothers, sisters, aunts, cousins that couldn't make it on their own, so they just move in with us. So life was often chaotic, but never boring. Out of all the adults, kind of funny thing, Bryan, out of all the adults living in a house, my mother was the only one that worked, and for some reason nobody ever cut the grass. Until I got old enough to push a lawnmower. Matter of fact,
it's amazing what you remember. It's amazing what you remember, and that's pretty vivid memory, right?
Yeah, I mean, why does that stand out? I think we found a 68 LeSabre and a 72 Pinto in the grass. They had gotten lost because they'd gotten so high. But from a growing up standpoint, I've always had a burning desire to work in order to have things that others have. And in the 8th and 9th and 10th grade, I was a high school janitor every day after school until about 5 o'clock. So, after 3 years it didn't take me. I finally figured out that I didn't have many girls coming up and say, "Man, you're looking great carrying that trash can today." I can tell you that. You're a cutie. So I quickly got out of that after the 10th grade and started getting into sports. So anyway, that's a little bit about my childhood and high school years.
Man, most people, you're one of the most successful people I've ever met, and what I love about your story and others' stories out there is that there are certain things that happen that people get upset about or concerned about, but those things can really motivate you, right? I mean, even times like this, with people sitting at home and trying to, figure this part out. I mean, you can use this time to really motivate you to kind of write a different page in the future of your book. So, man, I never knew you were the high school janitor. From that there's some just amazing points that we could dig incredibly deep. So you started learning kind of the value of hard work at an early age, and you were always willing to do, in which you still are. You're willing to do things that other people won't, and that's one of the reasons I think you're so successful, Mike. Is that when people complain, when people rest on their laurels, right? That doesn't get you anywhere. But you were always willing to say, "Listen, I'm not going to do that." Even when you were young, you were sitting there thinking, "I don't want to have my kids." Even this is before you even met your wife.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking, I don't want my kids to ever have to do this. And secondly, you're willing to sweep the floors and pick up the trash, which most people aren't willing to do. And so that's one of the keys to success, I think, for everybody, regardless of kind of your station in life and where you began, is being willing to do what others aren't, right?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
So this is really interesting. So that's how you kind of got started, your early childhood. How did you get into the insurance business?
I would probably say for the lack of talent to do anything else, Brian. I didn't have a whole lot of talent elsewhere. But after a brief stint in junior college, I came back home to Alpharetta and discovered that my older sister, had been working in the insurance business, going door to door, selling Medicare supplements, and it had really changed her life. I know that when I left to go to college up in North Carolina, she was living in a single wide, beat up car. I come back home within 2 years, and she was living in a nice apartment, had a brand new car, and so she was the one that motivated me to get into the insurance business. So I immediately after college went to work at the agency, and at that time the state insurance laws would allow an unlicensed agent to work with a licensed agent. So we worked in pairs, and we started out, and after about 90 days of working with a licensed agent, it was time for me to go take the insurance exam. Well, I failed it, and at that point became discouraged and thought, maybe the insurance business was not in the cards for me. So I during that period of discouragement, and I started to buckle down and studying for the insurance exam, and went back and took it, and finally passed it. So I was back in the insurance business.
I laugh because you were telling me this story one time, and I actually said, "Thank God that you passed your insurance license." Well,
I got to tell you, I'm awful thankful that I was able to pass that exam, because I think what we're doing here is a lot more fun, Bryan.
It is. You actually, I mean, listen. You're such a legend in so many different ways. So you passed your insurance exam. You decided to get into the insurance business. Did things take off right away for you there, or how did that work out?
Not really. As everybody knows, there's a lot of the other people on the call here today. A lot of the other leaders that I've heard the stories about going door to door. There's not a lot of fun in that, and there was not a lot of success right away for me. I went out and continued to hit the system, do the system, work the system, go door to door, day after day. Got transferred to Florida to manage the state of Florida for this agency that I was working for, local agency here in Atlanta. But they sent me there, and I was able to recruit some agents to go to work for me. And soon, Bryan, after that, within 8 months, 9 months to a year, I began realizing the power of renewal. The renewal income started coming in from business that I'd written previously. And so, once I started seeing that light go off, it really, the light bulb went on for me, I can tell you. And I knew then this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
I have to say, Mike, you're one of the most generous people that I've ever met. In fact, I could go through, and I know our buddy Mark Wills, who's on the phone here as well. I mean, we could all just share stories about your generosity and how just kind you've been to people, but also just how you've helped people through a lot of different hard times, but also good times. In fact, whenever we announced that you were going to be on this call, I got an email from Jennifer Sims that works with you there, and Jennifer had sent me an email, just out of the blue, said, "Hey, I just want to tell you how generous Mike White is, and how great he's been to my family." In fact, Jennifer said that, and I know I'm catching you off guard here, but she sent me this email, and I just want to summarize it. She said that she's worked with you guys at AIMC for 23 years, and about 10 years ago, she and her family had lost their home and everything that they owned in a fire. Jennifer and her husband and their 2 kids at the time were 9 and 1, and they barely escaped with nothing but their clothes and their socks. They didn't even have time, because of the fire and how quickly it burned their house down, to even grab their shoes. And so they just grabbed the kids, ran out of the home, and ran out. And your sister Sue, who was also a supervisor at AIMC at the time, drove up there immediately and literally sat on the curb with with Jennifer and her family as they watched their house just burn to the ground. And the next day, Sue had Jennifer come up to your office there at AIMC, and when she got there, Jennifer discovered that the entire AIMC family had collected shoes and toys, clothes, towels, school supplies, and more. And you personally helped line her up with a house and a home their family could stay in, and help them kind of piece back their entire world back together. And in this email, man, this email, I got this email on Friday afternoon, and I'm just moved to almost tears, as she said that without you and your entire team there at AIMC, she doesn't know how they would have made it through that incredibly difficult time. And so, Mike, you think bigger than anybody I've ever met. However, you also are one of the most generous people, and there's stories like this, and I could just keep going. But I love that Jennifer shared the story, just to say how thankful she is for you and your family and everybody, and how quickly you brought people together. So I just wanted to share that with you, man.
Well, Bryan, Jennifer came on board with AIMC back when she was a teenager. I think she was either 17 or 18, it seems like to me. And she's family. And, that's what family does. Everybody at AIMC jumped on board to be a major part of help get her life back together. It certainly wasn't just me. I mean, everybody, and that is what that's what is so, I think, so cool about AIMC and Integrity and the entire Integrity family is that it is a family, and that's what family does, whether it's in business or in life.
Wow, I agree. Well, Mike, you also, as we talk about, you think big, better than I think almost anybody out there, and you're not afraid of making that phone call. In fact, I remember whenever a huge carrier. I want to be careful with carrier names and all that tough stuff. Well, listen, in 1996, you got one of the biggest carriers into the brokerage market, which was just incredible. But I remember there was a huge merger that occurred that happened in the health insurance business. That I remember whenever that news broke, you called me and you said, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be the biggest thing in the world. We need to be able to have that branded product. We need to have an exclusive Medicare supplement product with that carrier right away. And we need to call them and get a meeting together. Will you fly in and meet with me on this?" And to be honest, Mike, when you said that, I thought, man, that's crazy. Yeah, I'll do whatever you think. And I never really expected you to go, okay, we're going to meet in 2 weeks in New York City. Can you fly up here and do this? But that's how, I mean, I never doubt you, Mike, whenever you get something in your mind. And most people, and now we just rolled that out, and it's back to the fastest exclusive product we've ever launched.
Right.
One of the biggest successes that we've ever seen. What is it in you that makes you go, hey, let's give them a call and go out and get that deal?
Well, Bryan, I think that I love being surrounded by a strong team that thinks big and cares big. The one thing that's for certain in my mind is I'm the weakest guy on the team, and I mean that sincerely. Think about it. I get to work every day with two of the most respected guys in the industry, A.C. Chapman and Tony Light and several others, but these are two big thinkers. And any of these deals that we have put together over the years is kind of an interesting dynamic. It's kind of like a band. When we go in to sit down and talk with these major companies like the one that you're referring to there, we go in and I'll speak for about just a few minutes, and then it's completely turned over to Tony and AC, and I let them go to work because those are the pros, and it's kind of cool to be able to turn it over to them. Most of the folks, or a lot of folks on the phone, know these two, and I just sit back and watch them. There's no doubt when we're in those meetings and going through those presentations that they are always going to be on their A game. We have no idea how Mike White's going to show up. He could be on his C game, D game, or whatever. But those two are always going to be on their A game, and so just a lot of respect there. So one thing for sure, Bryan, there's a tremendous power in thinking big, especially when you have a great team around you like those guys that can help you make those big dreams a reality. So if you take a look at the entire Integrity team. Integrity is, jam-packed with big thinkers. It's key to really surround yourself with big thinkers. So, and but once you commit to I think it's easy to be overwhelmed by big ideas and sometimes nervous to start. But once you commit to addressing it head on, make the calls, look for and embrace the opportunities, you got to go all in, and you'll surpass. You'll pass at what you're working diligently and consistently towards through the big ideas and dreams can help you accomplish, for sure.
Man, you hit on so much there. We could go a lot of different ways, but first of all, you've said this to me several times, and it really resonates. Is one of the magic things that we've got here at Integrity is we've got so many diversified, business leaders that are just the best in their business. I mean, they are just world class. They're legends, and they've just done some amazing things. But as we've come together, you said it to me one day. You said it's like being in a band, and you kind of alluded to this a minute ago. It's like being in a band, and as part of that band is we're all, one may be great at playing the violin or the fiddle, as we call them in Texas. It could be playing the guitar, the bass guitar, the drums, whatever. But we're all playing our instrument.
Maybe.
And somebody may be singing. Certainly not me or you, but somebody's singing, somebody's playing the guitar, somebody's running the lights or the board. And when you all come together, man, you do something really special. And that's one of the most amazing things I think about the Integrity family. Here's one thing I know is that you're working just as hard as you've ever worked, maybe harder. Other leaders around the business are working just as hard as they've ever worked or harder. And I've never really been all that nervous about the fact that people need our products more today than they ever needed them before. And now they know that they need them even more. And so, we've just got an amazing business with amazing leaders all playing their instrument at the same time. Wait, here I do want to dig in before we wrap up. There's so many people on this call
mm-hmm.
that they get nervous to make that phone call. They get nervous to, they're going to call that big client or that big, prospect that they've got. Like, man, if they could just get that person on the phone, and sometimes they get kind of frozen with fear, so to speak,
mm-hmm.
where they're scared to make that call. But man, you've never been afraid of getting, and it's amazing. Like, you always get the meeting, right? And whenever you called me about that one that we were just talking about, I was like, yeah, right. I mean, that's one of the largest companies in the world, period. And yeah, I'm sure I'll go to that meeting with you if you can get it. But a lot of people like myself think, well, what's the reality of getting that meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people just don't even make the freaking call, right? But what
right.
is it that how do you overcome that fear or that hesitation to go, I'm just going to make what else do I have to lose? Let's just call it.
Yeah, Bryan, I think for me, I made a decision many years ago that I was not going to live my life in fear, and really any type of fear. I know that it's only human nature to have anxiety during these times, anxiety about bills, anxiety about what our children's doing, how they're doing. But I think if you make the decision that I'm not going to live my life in fear, it really kind of removes, for me, that hesitancy to pick up the phone and call someone that is in a major corporation, insurance carrier, and not be intimidated by fear. Once again, goes back to fear. And so just making the decision, to answer your question short, is just don't live your life in fear, whether it's in business, if it's you're in that call center or you're calling that agent, go ahead, put your head down, do it, and good things will happen.
Wow. That in and of itself is worth everything we've talked about today. It's living your life in fear can never be productive, right? And
no.
So don't live your life in fear. Just fight through it. It's hard to sometimes, but fight through it. Make that phone call. Make that contact. And there's no telling where you can be. I mean, you started with really humble beginnings, as you mentioned to us, and you talked about. And because you didn't have fear, And because you wouldn't, I'm sure you had fear. Let's be honest. We all have fear. But because you fought through that fear, look at where you are today, and you've got one of the most beautiful families and businesses and teams that I've ever met. So, Mike, thank you so much for blessing us this morning with that, with all that you've shared. This has been just a deep, rich conversation, and I just want to thank you for that, my friend.
Bryan, you're welcome, and thanks to all the great partners with Integrity, and there's just so many great things ahead that's going to come along in this story, and I'm excited about being a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, hey guys, we're going to have an exciting announcement on tomorrow's call. I'm not going to give you much more detail, but we've said we're going to be running business as usual, just remote, and I'm going to prove that to you tomorrow. That we're going to have an exciting announcement on tomorrow's call. So excited to have that, and excited for you guys to join us. Mike, thank you again, brother. I love you.
Love you, buddy, and appreciate you having me on.
Hey, buddy. We'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody.